فرانسه یکی از نادر کشورهای جهان است که از آغاز تا کنون با افغانستان روابط نیک و دوستانه داشته است. روابط دیرینه افغانستان با فرانسه برمیگردد با آغاز سالهای اعلان استقلال افغانستان از سوی شاه امان الله خان. افغانستان که 4 دهه می شود درگیر جنگ و نارامی ها است، فرانسه همچنان در کنار مردم افغانستان باقی مانده است. اما جزئیات روابط فرانسه با افغانستان را در مصاحبه با فرد شماره 1 این کشور در افغانستان بررسی میکنیم.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you for giving us this opportunity
Salam.
for this exclusive interview. First of all, I want to ask you about in what areas France has been supporting Afghanistan since the beginning.
So first of all, welcome to the French Embassy. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to welcome you here. So, you know, France and Afghanistan have established diplomatic relations for almost a century, 97 years. You know, the history, the beginning of this friendship is the decision by King Amanullah Shah to bring in the country French archaeologists. And his idea was that, you know, he wanted to create a national feeling, a national sentiment for the Afghan nation. And he thought that the only way to do it was to help the Afghans rediscover their own history. And I'm talking about the long-term history, more than several millennaries, coming back to the Buddhist era, the era of Alexander the Great, Iskander, etc., and then the Islamic era. And so he wanted to have archaeologists in the country because there was no written traces, and so it was needed to make that kind of excavations and searches to find traces of the history of Afghanistan. And at the time, he wanted to do that with the French, and so he gave the first authorization of excavation to the French archaeologist, leading to the creation of the French delegation of archaeology in Afghanistan. So that's the main topic and historically the first topic of cooperation between France and Afghanistan. And then immediately after that, once we had an ambassador in Kabul, we started working on several other areas. Education, we helped the creation of Istiklal and Malalai schools. Health, we welcomed in France many medical students from Afghanistan already in the 1920s. So you see, it's almost a century. Just to give you an example, I saw yesterday Zalmay Rasool, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, and you have to know that he's a trained doctor. He was trained in France, but his father already was one of the first Afghan medical students to be trained in France. And if you see today, for example, we keep on working on the field of health because we've founded the French Medical Institute for the Mother and the Child in Kabul, along with the French NGO, the Chain of Hope, and with the Aga Khan Development Network, and the Afghan government. And just so you know, the chief surgeon, Dr. Najib Bina of the FMIC, was also an Afghan student who was trained in France, and now he has reached a level of excellency in his specialty, which is seen only in rare hospitals around the world. So you have great talents, and so we're very proud of that cooperation.
And based on what you said, I would like to know how much your aids, maybe specifically your worth during your time in Afghanistan.
Since the beginning?
Yes.
Impossible to say, but you know, now it's even difficult to count precisely because we have our bilateral support. For example, we keep on welcoming Afghan students every year in France. And we also have the support that France transmits through the European Union. France is one of the biggest financial contributors to the European Union, and because our contribution is worth around 20% of the European budget, and the European contribution to the cooperation in Afghanistan is around 200 million euros every year, which are probably $230 million a year.
As you mentioned, did you have any achievements since your beginning your mission in Afghanistan? Please list the greatest achievement in Afghanistan.
For France,
yes.
I would say that, again, if you consider the latest achievements, the FMIC is a fantastic achievement, because now it's probably the best hospital in Kabul, and it's probably one of the best hospitals in Central Asia, and we will keep on supporting the project in the new phase of development, which will make it a center of excellence in many medical specialties. But apart from that, we are extremely proud too of what the French archaeologists have been doing during these 100 years everywhere in Afghanistan. They've worked on Messeinak, the Buddhist site of Messeinak in Bamiyan, in Balkh. They have sites in Helmand. We have projects in Herat. We have projects in Panjshir. So they've been all around the country, and they've been really unveiling the wonders of Afghanistan. So we're very proud of that. But the schools, of course, and again the students that we've been able to bring to France and train, we consider them as a great achievement.
Okay, did you have any challenge on the way of completing your project in Afghanistan?
Not so much. I mean, we've had a very good cooperation with the Afghan government. Of course, there were times when it was much more difficult, and notably during the time of the communist regime here, where the French government had to stop many of his programs. But the thing is, NGOs, French NGOs, came and did what the state couldn't do anymore. So of course you've heard about the French doctors who came really very quickly after the beginning of the Soviet invasion, like in March 1980, in May 1980, Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, Médecins du Monde, Afran, other French NGOs who came and did what the state couldn't do anymore. And of course, during the time of the Talib Emirate, we stopped everything. We had to stop because of safety reasons, and because we couldn't, support a government and a regime that was so far away from our values and our support to human rights.
Now I want to hear this perspective about the peace process in Afghanistan.
So there is hope, and we need to stick to that hope. The hope is that every Afghan eventually realize that there is no future for no one in Afghanistan if the nation is not united. And the only way to do it is through peace talks. So we've seen that the government has been releasing more than 4,000 prisoners, which was the condition for the Taliban to start the negotiations. I think we're close to see that problem past, being behind us, and so we hope that the talks will be able to start very soon. Having said that, we will do whatever we can to help the negotiating team from the Republic side. If the discussion were to come to a stalemate or being stuck because of a political or technical problem, I told my interlocutors here, Massoud Stanexai, Dr. Abdullah, Amrullah Mohib, and all the others, that we will be ready, we will be available to help both sides of the table of negotiations to try and invent or create technical or political solutions that could be viable and could solve a problem that could lead, to a stalemate in the negotiations.
Let's come to women. As you know better, women in Afghanistan have a significant role in the society as well as peace process. What do you think and what you should do about the empowering women in Afghanistan?
You should do everything at the same time. Of course it starts with giving women positions in the administration, in the media industry, in everywhere. And notably in the peace talks. We keep on saying, and we said that during the last meeting of the Security Council that France chaired on last June, that a meaningful participation of women is a key condition to the long-term success of the peace talks in Afghanistan. You can't have a viable peace, a viable agreement, if you exclude from the discussions 50% of the population. Women represent 50% of the Afghan population. If you take them out, then what's the value of any agreement? So having said that, we're very fortunate and very satisfied to see that women, like everywhere in the world, they don't wait for an authorization to take positions and to take responsibilities. And we see that they are more and more in positions of responsibility in NGOs, for example. We're very happy to see that the new chair of the Afghan Independent Humanitarian Commission for Human Rights, Ms. Akbar, is a woman succeeding to another woman, Sima Samar. We're very happy to see that Mrs. Sarabi has been so instrumental during the beginning of the talks, in the Doha talks. She's been, in the writing committee, in the drafting committee of the negotiation. She's been very instrumental in preparing the conclusions of that meeting. So everything must be done to include women in the negotiation. The French government has formed a group of 30 women, very talented Afghan women, and we invited them to France last year so that they could come and meet French politicians, members of the parliament, journalists, so that they could explain what is the situation and that they could maybe learn from their encounters. And I keep on seeing them. Some of them are journalists, some of them are members of the parliament, Senator Anarkali, for example, who also has been very instrumental during the peace talks in Doha, many of them. And we really see that as a very crucial policy for Afghanistan.
Aren't you concerned about the 19 years achievements if lost? I mean achievement after the Taliban regime?
Of course we're concerned. We're concerned first of all because all these countries that are in Afghanistan for 19 years, they have been making sacrifices for all these years. Blood and treasure. When you entered the French embassy, you may have noticed on your right names. We've lost 90 soldiers here in Afghanistan. We've lost also many humanitarian workers, French humanitarian workers, journalists. So you see that, and as we were saying earlier, the French treasury has been, we've put a lot of money among all these years. Here, just like our American partners and friends, the Brits, the Germans, the European Union, etc. But that's one thing. The other thing is we're proud of what we did because we still believe that the purpose was noble. And the purpose is to help you Afghans build your own democracy and build a modern economy and a modern society that respects everyone. Again, these sacrifices, we want to see them respected in the fact that you Afghans would manage to keep that legacy alive. And this is why we believe that you need to stick to your constitution, you need to make it respected and vivid. You need to make sure that your institutions are fully work, that we want to see that the rights, human rights, are fully respected, and of course including women's rights.
Okay. Specifically, what have you done for culture and archaeology and generally in Afghanistan?
We would like to work with the Aga Khan Development Network, AKTC, Aga Khan Trust Fund for Culture, on the Bala Isar of Kabul, for example. There are many things that we could do on the Bala Isar. I've been to Herat quite recently, just before the lockdown because of the COVID, and I visited some sites that the former government has been working on. There are many things that we could do to keep on protecting the sites and making them available for the Heratis to visit and to see what is their past, what is the past of their region. There are places in Helmand that needs to be protected and again made available to visit. Meseinak, for example, which is a Buddhist site, probably the biggest Buddhist site in the world, needs to be, it needs to be curated. But once the area is safe, I'm pretty sure that visitors will be incredibly happy to come and visit it. But there are many other places where we would like to work. Bamiyan, for example, there are still many things that we could do in Bamiyan.
As a last question, I would like to know about your future plans in Afghanistan, generally.
So, France will keep on being supportive of the efforts for peace and development. We will keep on trying to bridge the gaps between the different parties. We will keep on helping in the field of education, in the field of health, as we are doing right now because of the COVID. President Macron, the president of the French Republic, has decided that we would have a special plan for Afghanistan to help fight COVID. So we will support FMIC. We will support through our NGOs the population. We will so that they can have proper food for $1 million for the year, which will be again channeled through these NGOs. And we are shipping in the country protective materials so that we can give them to the medical staff, notably at FMIC and elsewhere, but also to the soldiers of our Afghan National Army, to the police officers, and to the NDS, because they are at the forefront of the fight against the pandemic. They need support, and this is what we are doing right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Ambassador of France in Afghanistan.
Tashakkur. It's been a pleasure. Khuda Hafiz.